I am Varuni Trivedi. I'm the moderator for this amazing panel, and I have three amazing gentlemen with me. We have Raghav, he's the CEO of Reppo Labs, Michael, who is head of marketing at Recall, and Victor, who is FinOps at Olas. Now, we've had different waves in the Web3 space, and of late, at all the panels that I've been, there's something that I've heard, which is crypto cannot exist without AI, but AI can exist without crypto. And without a doubt, AI is no buzzword, it is here to stay. And we have to understand more about what AI can offer to this space and how we can scale AI better in collaboration with blockchain tech, which is exactly why we're here. And before we start with the key questions, I'd love for you guys to introduce yourself and your projects. Go ahead, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm RG, CEO of Reppo Labs. At Reppo, we're building new capital coordination mechanisms, which are modular in nature. So instead of locking into L1s for AI, we're building mechanisms where AI builders can raise data, raise capital, raise infra on demand, permissionlessly. So yeah.
So I'm actually Andrew from Recall Network. Michael couldn't make it. We're building protocols to help measure the performance of agents and giving them tools to get better at that.
Hey, I'm Victor. I do FinOps at Valory. Valory is a co-contributor to Olas, and Olas built Pearl, which is the agent app store.
All right, lovely. So I think I'll get straight to it. First, let's address the issue of monetization and adoption balance. What innovative monetization models can drive both profitability and mass adoption for AI agents, especially in markets that are resistant to centralized platforms? And I'm sure there's going to be a dynamic shift in this space, but how do you guys really see that happening? If you can maybe address the bottlenecks and what's the way forward, that'll be great. We'll start with RG and then maybe move to Angie.
Okay. Yeah, happy to comment. So I think the biggest challenge we have today is, Web3 is in this like weird death loop of constantly investing into the infrastructure. So we have like probably like 100 like launch pads for AI agents, like AI agent frameworks, which are great. But at the end of the day, I think the reality is there's only so many Web3 developers. So instead of like trying to get the attention of developers, I think we need to give them new monetization mechanisms, which is why I'm a big fan of what like folks at Recall are doing and what Olas are doing, because they you need to like essentially be agnostic to like where the developer is choosing. It's almost like like you cannot say like, oh, like program in Python and only then you can come to my network. Like no. And I feel like that's like where we are, especially with like some of these like L1s, where they're saying like, hey, if you don't build on our stack and use our DA layer and use our storage layer, then bye bye. You cannot apply for our grants or you cannot be part of our accelerator. I think we need to like think of it more like incentives and more modularly, where anyone, even Web2 people who build something on Replit, should be able to come on platforms like Reppo, platforms like Recall, on Olas, and like start to monetize and benefit from the incentive layer, which is really what crypto is about. I think, yeah.
Andrew, what do you have to say about that?
So about monetization agents specifically, yeah, I think it's a big opportunity right now to solve real problems. Like they're just such a great application interface. And I was just talking about it earlier, like engineers on my team, for example, right now are using an agent to code with them every moment of every day. And agents are only getting better as we speak. And so in my organization, we're starting to build agentic scaffolding to solve real problems in our organization. This is happening in organizations across the world. Many of these things are going to be productized. And many of these things can be accepting crypto, using crypto, secured by crypto. So having this overlap of developer communities for me is really exciting. And so I think it's really about just solving real problems with this awesome technology.
Hey, so yeah, about monetization, I think that it's a problem that solves itself as long as there is value for the end users. So like at Olas, we are like super excited about things that are sometimes like not very addressed very often in Web3. So for example, like academia, there is a on-chain research or like research made by agents that is like a huge potential field, but this is like far out. But then there is over there is Ming, who is organizing the AI agent hackathon at the Imperial College. He's also building on Olas, and he's thinking about a dating agent. And there, the monetization is straightforward. Like, you save me X minutes on chatting on my behalf, and I want to pay for it out of pocket. So sometimes it can be very complicated and far out, just like academia, or it can be very straightforward. You save me time, and I want to reward you for saving me time.
That's amazing. Those are some really crucial points that you guys made. I think blockchain devs have been super excited about AI, and Andrew just mentioned how so many people on his team are actually using AI agents, and that's probably made their work a lot easier. How is blockchain and AI gonna move hand in hand, and what are the key changes that we're gonna see in this space? I'm sure we're already seeing a lot of changes in this space, but in the real world, what are the implications that we're gonna have? I think, RG, if we can start with you.
So just to clarify, you were asking how does blockchain, the intersection of blockchain and AI, kind of help accelerate like the agentic kind of the space at large? Okay. Again, I think my answer would be, I think it's come down to two things. I think incentives is again one big one, where I think today, again, like, not just talking about Web3, broadly Web2, there's, a lot of ways, platforms, frameworks that you can use to build an agent. But then a VC will not invest in your agent. Like, that model is never going to work. It makes no sense for a VC to invest in your one agent unless like you were doing like multi-million dollars. Even then, I think there's no guarantee because everything is like so malleable, open source, composable, which is the beauty of it. So I think we really need to think about how this intersection of AI and crypto can enable new incentive mechanisms. And then I think a lot of the work that is happening on the verifiability end, I think that's important. It hasn't taken off in the same way, but I do think that when we think about risk and reputation systems of AI agents, that's a big area. Insurance for AI agents, if that's a big area. And all of both of those use cases, for example, are great to be built on blockchain because they require verifiability and they require transparency. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, you took some of the good ones. Yeah, it's funny because you just hear this kind of growing laundry list of problems that are emerging around AI. And so many of them seem to be problems that crypto solved kind of too early. So things like verification around deepfakes, things like ownership of art. It came up on the last talk, like the Ghibli ownership of IP. That was something that we were working on during the last boom cycle that didn't really bridge out of crypto. But obviously we can be thinking about new ways to be applying it. Things like supply chain and verification. I think all of those are things that people are identifying outside of crypto as needed. And maybe we haven't packaged it quite right to bridge the gap yet. But I think there's just really like ripe opportunities here to start applying a lot of the things that we've been mostly researching and R&Ding for the last 6 or 8 years.
Yes, on the topic of relationship in between AI and Web3 AI, basically since 2022, there's been 200 billion invested in AI startup, generally speaking, but only 2 billion invested in Web3 AI. So where normal startups are going to try to build centralized solutions, what we can bring is really this co-ownership. Olas is all about co-owning your services, co-owning your agents. And in that sense, Web3 AI can really work towards social justice when there is no one entity that takes over. So that would be the main impact for me.
Right. I think I picked out a few keywords from the conversation that we just had: verifiability, IPs, and of course the social risks that you spoke about. There's always a constant war between innovation and ethics. And as leaders in this space, how are you guys going to navigate these challenges around ethics? And of course, there's going to be, or so they say, that there's going to be a lot of job displacement that's going to happen with the advent of AI, even though Andrew mentioned that it aids the job to be done in a better way. So how are leaders going to, at their forefront, tackle this problem of innovation versus ethics? Is it truly a problem at the moment? And if so, can blockchain in any way solve that?
I don't know. I guess the debate's still out. It seems like in the near term, at least jobs wise, there's just going to be more work. What's anybody know the law that basically as things get cheaper, people just demand more of it. And so people mostly apply it to chips, right? If chips get faster and cheaper, it doesn't mean we need less chips. We actually you're gonna need more chips. Funny enough, and I think we can probably see the same here. If coding, if I can suddenly code with 20 agents in my back pocket, it doesn't mean I have less to code. It probably means we can build a heck of a lot more things. And so I think the work thing it isn't likely going to go. We're not going to go off a cliff in the immediate future. That was just the one thing I had, but
I think for me, it's important to acknowledge that ethics is a human-centric concept, and I think we can't just take this concept of ethics, which we have developed, I guess, from over I guess centuries, and just apply it to AI agents, because that conflicts with the idea of autonomous, right? I mean, you cannot have something that's autonomous and then just still be ethical, because really, I think what you're saying is that it needs to operate within the current framework, legal framework, or kind of human framework. So I think what's going to happen, I do believe that there's going to be 1 billion agents on chain before there are 1 billion humans. And so first of all, we need to start designing systems for agentic and physical AI workflows, which means we break it down at Reppo into 4 parts: discovery, negotiation, commitment, and settlement. So can an agent walk into your shop, and your shop could be Olas or Recall or whatever you're building here? Can an agent come to your protocol, to your app, and can it discover and essentially do its entire flow end to end? And I think that's something very important. Once we accomplish that, then I think we need to think about the ethics of things, right? That's how I think about it. If we start with ethics and we then we start to think about efficiency, I think we'll get into this weird loop of why Google didn't make it and why ChatGPT made it, because it'll be more safe. Yeah, it's this weird concept, but I think we need to move away and define a new ethics framework for agents, and not apply our own ethics, human-centric ethics, to AI and agents. So
I like it. Not applying human ethics. This is good. But basically, yeah, I'm a little bit with you on this point, in the sense that over the last year, we can see how, for example, commercial work for photographers, the budget have been slashed because AI and agents are so good at it. And I think this is gonna go through every basically segment of the industry. So, for example, I do a lot of accounting, and accounting is just putting databases together. So that's, if it can be automated, it should be automated. So then I think it's individual responsibility to stay on top of your field and use AI agents rather than be replaced by them. It's on everyone's responsibility.
Right. Victor, you mentioned earlier that the difference between funding that Web3 AI projects get versus AI projects getting, it's massive. And yet we've seen evident growth in terms of how AI has helped Web3 grow. I would love to understand why that difference, according to you guys, and what are founders doing to sort of make that better or bridge that gap? Are we looking at a bright future here, or are we looking at a laggy growth still in the next few years?
Sorry, what was the difference?
If you could quote the numbers, I think 2 billion for...
Yeah, it's 1%. Since 2022, 1% went to Web3 AI, and the rest went just to standard AI.
So would you like to go first with this question?
Could you repeat it?
Yeah. Why this gap, and what are founders doing to bridge this? Are we looking at a drastic growth in the next few years, or?
No. Yeah, we're going to benefit from it. We're definitely going to benefit from it because, and it also means that we're going to have to adapt pretty quickly. That right now, one solution and one way to deliver value might not be the same in 6 months, only because there was such massive investment in AI startups, generally speaking. So we have to capitalize on their investment. Yeah.
I think so. 2 points, right? I think one, we just weren't there yet. We weren't there. I think we're finally seeing. Okay, so you have to look at the funding landscape. For example, Prime Intellect. There's like it's a pretty big computing company, computing crypto project. They were backed by Founders Fund. So like what you're seeing is more like non Web3 funds are now coming into backing crypto projects. So that's a good thing. I think we need to also look at like who's funding and like, in addition to just numbers. There was also this other incident that recently happened where NVIDIA's accelerator actually mentioned that if you're a crypto company, crypto AI project, you cannot apply. Like it's like even the acknowledgement that they're like noticing that they see like I don't think it's like a major threat, but like they acknowledge that like a company like Jensen or like one of these companies might actually be a competitor to what NVIDIA is doing. That's huge, and that's happened in 3 years. So I think one is we weren't ready. The tech wasn't ready. I think we are still probably not ready, but we're getting there. And I think I would say the second thing why this gap exists is this is like a hot take. I think we need to move away from this mentality of like building L1s for AI. My personal opinions is L1s for AI don't make a lot of sense, especially when you look at like ecosystem lock-ins. We need to build things in a more modular manner because I think what we'll end up doing is just like I think people are trying to like create the same ethos of like DeFi versus TradFi, but the reality is that's never going to happen because it's not like traditional, apart from like, I guess like, centralization of like data and some of that, I don't think you'll ever have like the same level of vilification of traditional Web2 companies of agents versus DAI agents. So like the reason why someone will build Web3 agents or decentralized agents is not because of like major philosophical reasons. We don't have like I don't think we're there where we have a better builder stack compared to like like a Web2 solution. So really, I think we need to figure out what is it about Web3 agents, like Web3 platforms or Web3 way of building agents. Again, I'm biased. I think it all comes down to incentives. Like what Recall is doing, I don't think you can do that on Web2, right? Or what Olas is doing of co-ownership, it's just not possible, right? You need to like do and go after the like those kind of metas to stand out, and actually like that's what becomes interesting to a Web2 audience as well. Yeah.
Right. So after the meta rebranding, so to say, the entire industry went crazy on AI, and there were a lot of Web3 firms that sort of rebranded themselves into an AI project for VC funding or whatever the reason. But I feel not everything needs that AI tag. And of late, almost every organization has been all about the rebrand into AI. So what parts of the blockchain ecosystem actually need AI? Is it DeFi? Is it decentralized compute? If you guys can talk about that and also talk about what parts of the blockchain ecosystem absolutely do not need AI and are simply doing it for the sake of it.
I'm kind of of two minds of that. Actually, I want to go back to the other question because you made me think of finally what I want to say.
Finally.
Yeah. Because I think what you said kind of matches my mental framework of it right now, which is there's so many interesting and good building blocks in crypto. There's the 99% of the conversation, which probably annoys most people in this room most of the time about crypto. But there's the good stuff that we build. And so now what we need to do is figure out how to export it. So now we need to become exporters of this good technology and find buyers and people that need it in these other communities. And it's not really about like a crypto marketing or something like that. It's about how do we bridge those conversations and figure out what those builders need that we know how to solve. And I think there's a lot of good tools in our toolbox to do that. So, and I think that's what you're pointing at, these like specific characteristics of these projects that aren't really like crypto for crypto. It's us trying to figure out how to export it to broader people. Yeah, and so then the rebrand. I mean, we're guilty of that, but the guilt is like for us. I actually got my start building my own company. What we were very interested at the time was trying to build neural nets that were small enough and efficient enough to run on mobile devices in 2016, so that we could help companies learn more about their users on the device without taking their data. and we learned that the market didn't want to do that. They just wanted more data at the time. And so it's always been a fascinating area for us, and we've been really interested in data and data protocols the entire time. And then looking out at the world, you realize that all data protocols now point to or are connected to AI. So it just made no sense to not figure that out. And I think a lot of companies are facing that now. Like the whole technology world has changed under our feet. I don't know. I'm sure there's huge swaths of technology that don't need to rebrand with AI. But it's just actually really hard to put a finger on ones that can kind of ignore it in a way, you know, like your employees are changing, your organization is changing. Like I think we're going to see Fortune 500 companies that are built by 10, 12 people and a lot of AI pretty soon, you know? So it's just like it's a weird moment.
Yeah. Got to be prepared for robots finally ruling us.
Yeah.
RG, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I guess from my perspective, and I'd be wrong here, I don't think RWAs need AI. I don't think depends like in its like current form need AI. I think depends can use AI, for example, to like maybe build better like processes or like in governance. But in itself, I think like just like I don't know, like in a token like around, I've seen like so much deepen into AI. If I go up to someone, I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, they have no clue, right? Like every AI project is calling themselves a DeepN, every DeepN is calling themselves an AI, like so like it's like weird. But yeah, I mean, I used to work at Filecoin for many years, so like I think a DeepN is just like it's a crypto project, and it doesn't have to do anything with AI. Sure, you can't say like, oh, I'm using ChatGPT, so I'm an AI company. Like no, that's not how it works. But I think so I think those are two major categories. I think, for example, when it comes to like a big area, I think that AI can be used and should be used more is again like so there's social risk, but also like this smart contract audits or things like that. I think we need to look at, especially as builders, there are certain costs we have to incur as a founder. Legal and security are two of the major costs where you can quote me whatever price, and most likely I'll have to pay. So I think that's where AI should be used to empower projects and reduce cost in Web3. So I think instead of like industry focus and marrying like verticals of crypto into AI, we need to start to think about application of AI in the workflow, in AI workflows. Maybe start there, improve so that we don't have to raise $20 million rounds, $80 million rounds to build like a layer 1 blockchain. That's absurd. And let's move towards using AI there, and then I think we can talk about, okay, what does the intersection of deepen into AI look like?
Okay. So I'm going to be like pretty quick here, but basically, like where I think this is going is people running locally their code. So we have this mantra: own your code, own your destiny, and basically we're having now it's going to be possible in the next 6 or 12 months to have non-reasoning model on consumer devices. And that is going to remove a lot of the AI from on-chain to the device. And then only the transactions, or like the most crucial transactions, are going to be done on-chain.
Right. Now, interoperability is already something that a lot of Web3 founders have been scared of, and crypto at large has struggled with it for the last few years. I feel that the AI agent space at the moment still feels a lot fragmented. Are there any protocols or general industry standards that we're looking forward to or are missing at this point for the industry to be tied in together in terms of tech, in terms of dev, in terms of marketing efforts, all of that? If so, what are they, and how would founders at this time and age work towards it better?
Yeah, that's. I think it's a really competitive market. So of course, at Olas we have Pearl and the Make marketplace for agent-to-agent transactions. Like we did like over around 4 million agent-to-agent transactions, but it is like research is happening right now. For example, like MCP A2A. Let's see. Like we're gonna need to change things as we go.
Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I do think it's like interesting because we have been talking about interop for so many years, but A to A and MCP might be two of the most popular interop protocols built in the last few years. MCP taking off like wildfire. A to A will yet to be seen, but has some like really interesting things in it that are applicable here, like the idea of having agents be able to negotiate on price and figure out exchanges. I think building on that and riding on that in crypto and showing what's possible. And back to the last ideas, I think also this whole idea of like where agents can be applicable is so much in the boundary of protocols and the boundary of organizations, and that makes sense that A to A it's going to be potentially very useful. And so making sure that we figure out how to make that crypto first, I think there's some smart teams probably working on that.
Yeah. Well, I think from our perspective, from Reppo's perspective, we're very bullish on intent-centric architectures. So the on Reppo, we built out two exchanges. One's a data exchange, one's an infra exchange, and both of them use what we call a solver network. So that's designed after Anoma, where it's almost like a matchmaking between providers and kind of consumers. So yeah, in today's world, for example, there's like we're finally getting to a place where you have like 7 or 8 compute networks, or 7 to 8 data storage networks, or 7 to 8 verifiable inference networks. But the reality is, the developer or even the agent doesn't need to doesn't need to and doesn't want to consume the marketing of each different project, can figure out the token and all that stuff. So I think interoperability needs to be looked at from like an intent-centric perspective. And I think that's going to be key from my perspective, that agents are going to have an intent. Like your agent might just be, given a task to optimize your portfolio, and you just have to tell it what's your risk profile and what's the budget, and that's all it needs to know. And it can, autonomously negotiate price. It can buy data. It can retrain itself. We have to think about those aspects before we can go on full-on interoperability. And I think the second point on interoperability is, I think broadly in the industry, incentives are still not aligned, where I think there's still a higher incentive to build your own end-to-end ecosystem and not have things interoperable. So I think we just need to acknowledge that as well. I think a lot of the stuff we see around interoperability is very much like it's for show, but really I think everything is about value capture. So I think we need to think about new economic models where interoperability actually makes financial sense, because I think we cannot just market interoperability and not think about the business model, because that's just that doesn't work. So yeah.
I think a while back, RG, you mentioned how as founders, as builders, you guys are, of course, hyper-focused on security and regulation. And we know that with the advent of AI, the way we look at identity is going to change. In fact, that was spoken about in a previous session right before us. So how is that going to play out with the regulations that are in place currently, as well as the security structures that most companies have? How is privacy, how are we looking at privacy and identity as we move forward with AI agents? And how are you guys as builders, as founders, gonna take a look at that?
I think if you want to become a billionaire, start a company in that area and just sell every person who's building agents. Literally, I think it's the most boring stuff, right? I think we just had to got our smart contracts audited for a node sale, and yeah, we paid I think $15,000. So yeah, I think that's the kind of stuff. So I feel like it's gonna increase because the threat vectors are increasing, right? Now the threat vectors are not just coming from humans. Threat vectors are coming in real time from agents. So that's a big one. So I think the cost, the spend is going to increase. I might be wrong, but I think from my perspective, for most companies, the spend on security is going to increase. The spend on regulation, I don't know. I think maybe we have better structures. You can move your company to Dubai and reduce that, for example. So we have better, I think, mechanisms there. But I do think that the advent of agents and AI in general does increase your spend on security. Yeah, I don't know if you guys disagree.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna have to. I think a lot of organizations right now dream of like agents coming in and somehow being able to consume all their docs, drive their meetings, their agendas, things like that. And to do that, like, yeah, the security spend needs to go way up and the certification of these things needs to go crazy. Yeah, I don't have much to add. I agree with all that.
Yeah, I think it's a problem that is going to solve itself in the sense that there were regulation about book sales, but then Amazon came and then all the regulation was rewritten. So I think like the pace of innovation is that fast that it's just going to happen first and foremost. And then on the security part, I think it's important for people to own their code, to run their code, and to have their code on their device.
But doesn't it seem like right now the race is on? Like, I've never given so much of my data to any social network that I've given to like at least 2 of the models, you know, maybe 3. And it seems like the race is on clearly with like the new push for memory to know as much as possible about me and get as much data. It seems like the trend is actually the more data I give them, the better I get a service, not I pull software and I close them off from data. How do we flip the trend?
So yeah, love it. The idea is yes, the answers I'm going to be getting are more and more like valuable as the data increases. But I ideally, rather than just interacting with one LLM, I'm interacting with a bunch of agents, and I'm getting rewarded for sharing my knowledge. And that would be like the growl. Like I'm deciding who knows about my hair, you know, and who's gonna be selling me shampoo based on what I decide to share, and I'm being rewarded for it, not Google or another big AI name.
Yeah, I think one thing that, you know, just like people in general or humanity in general just like overlooked or haven't talked about, this is the first time in living memory, living memory, that your memory is not owned by you. Like, just think about it. You know, I think memory is one of those things. Even if I share a story, my memory with you, I'm still selectively sharing that. But because, you know, with AI, a lot of people are developing this like one-to-one relationship, and it's like intimate relationship. It's the first time where your memory is actually owned by someone else, and over a long period of time, literally like someone can own your memory. Like, just think about that concept, right? And so yeah, to what, like, you know, Andrew was saying, I think like the concept of maybe yes, people would like, you know, like choose and select that, you know, my memory can be used to sell shampoo. I just don't know if like it's the same challenge, right? Like, do people care as much? I think we all like know, you know, our data is sold on, you know, on Google, and like we're like fed ads. But like, how far do we really go to like actually prevent that? And I think we just need to like, I think the way I think about it is we need to essentially build micro products. So a good example, I was just talking to someone from the Filecoin team, and we were talking about like how can we build, for example, like a Filecoin plugin, which essentially you just download on your Chrome, and when you're talking to ChatGPT, you can just, you know, select that plugin and maybe pay like, you know, like almost like a Mozilla kind of experience where you pay $10 a month for that plugin so that you can store your memory in like a decentralized storage, like, you know, in a verifiable manner. I think we need to like think about micro products that latch onto current Web2, you know, current popular Web2 products, instead of like trying to redesign ChatGPT, because the reality is ChatGPT has 500 million users. Sure, you can spend the rest of your life like trying to emulate that, or you could try to like, you know, understand the flow of a ChatGPT user, highlight, you know, what are the ethical or philosophical vulnerabilities, and then offer these micro products to intervene in that flow. And I think it'll probably start small, where there'll be like a set of like, you know, people who would understand that, oh, like this is the first time in like human history where memory can be owned by someone else. So I should pay $10 a month to use this like Web3 solution, or like, you know, like this like alternative. So yeah, that'll be my kind of like, you know, perspective on this.
Right. You did get me thinking when you said that not just data, but your memory will be now owned by some entity. And we've been all about decentralization. That is the core ethic of Web3. And with the advent of AI, I feel somewhere or the other we're losing sense of decentralization. How far is a truly, truly decentralized future? And is it even possible, is my question, with the advent of AI now? I think I've got you all thinking.
All right. No, this is I have a very short answer for this. Is you should run your agent on Perl. So it's at autonolas.network. We can download your agent and run it, and that's very decentralized.
Yeah, we should all do that for sure. I agree. I think I think the future, it looks something like it does now, hopefully with more success of our protocols and our system in the future. But I think we're locked in for my lifetime into at least hybrid. Like there's going to be decentralization, there's going to be centralization. There's no uh, it's the infinite game, right? There's no winner. There's no winner and a stopping point here. And so, yeah, I think we should be building for that. I think we should be building systems that know how to work together and you can migrate between them to get the best of both. And I don't even think it makes sense to try to compete in the sense that we're going to get to a winning point and like this decentralized thing is going to take over the centralized. It's just we're gonna live with both. So.
Yeah, I think to what Andrew said, I think eventually people will realize that this whole. I think the challenge we have today is people expect, fairly so, like expect the same level of like UX or like the decentralized solution should be as good as like the centralized one. But the way this will evolve is like if you want to eat healthy in a salad, you cannot like continue to complain about it and like for like have a steak. So I think like just centralized will have an edge, partly because they're like insanely well funded, just like just the speed at which it can move. Of course, we should accreditably make progress to like try to catch up to the speed. But I think if you're using decentralized solutions, the user at the end of the day needs to value some of the aspects, right, like co-ownership or like having more control. And really, I think that the way the tipping point will happen, maybe not like I hope it doesn't happen, but unfortunately it will. Like maybe like a big like world event happens where it may like recently. I think it wasn't anything to do with AI, but like what happened in Spain and in Portugal, like the light out. Those kind of events will like make people realize like the holy crap moment, right? Like it's like, oh my god, like what am I doing? And I think when that moment happens, I think we need to be ready with alternatives. From my perspective, that's what I see crypto to be a lot about. It is about doomsday planning. It's about it's about finding alternatives. So yeah, I think we should just stick with that and constantly evolve business models and
Okay. So if we went back in time though, no AI back then, well, at least no AI like it is now, and Cambridge Analytica happened right now, would we be ready with alternatives so that the outcome wouldn't be everybody had backlash and then went back to the exact same? Were we ready now? I don't know.
I don't think we're ready.
Yeah, I don't think we have those alternatives.
We don't. Yeah.
Not yet, anyway.
Yeah.
Right. I think I'll get back to strategies for growth. And if you guys can share a roadmap that maybe your companies followed and what founders can actually follow as a strategy of growth, what would that be? And I'm sure there are a lot of founders or builders with us here today. One thing that everyone lacks is the right strategy. A lot of people have the right kind of product, but what is the right strategy to build those products and to market them? If you guys can talk about that so that we can wrap up this session real quick and leave our audience with those strategies.
All right, so I'm going to be very quick here. The strategy, the winning strategy is to capture a large market share of a tiny market and then to sequence the expansion correctly. And those are the two necessary aspects to winning.
Yeah, agree with that. I think I think there is something to be paired with that we do live in this world where attention can be turned into growth very effectively if you do it right. So building the right product, listening to your customers, and figuring out how you get eyeballs on it. They're not the same thing a lot of times, and it takes a very different skill set. How you build an audience and how you have a genuine voice and talk to people about what you're building, but then also listen to them about what solutions they're waiting for. Like that's what we probably all need to be doing better. Every founder wants to do that better. How do you just listen to the solutions that people want and then figure out how to build them or figure out the path to get your product to solving those problems and those pain points? But building that audience so that you can hear those opinions and those ideas, I think is a really important piece right now.
I think I'll probably just comment on winning strategies for specifically for crypto or Web3 founders, because I think my perspective has changed over the last year and a half that I've been one. I think a big one is trying to find jumping on what Victor was saying. I think the gaps, right? So you have right. For example, for us, we are trying to define a new vertical for AI into capital, where we're saying hey, a lot of innovation into AI, into data, AI into privacy, AI into compute. Why is no one thinking about AI into capital? Why are we still funding everything using a traditional VC model in AI? That's kind of stupid. So it taking those non consensus bets against existing powers, because I think that's what crypto is about really, and you can do that in many ways. So I think that could be a winning strategy where you go after an area or a problem that seems too big to take a bite, because initially it's one of those things where people will be you're going against the incumbents, but then really I think then people will pay attention to you because you're a bit different, a bit interesting, and I think that's what's missing. We've kind of come to a world in crypto where there's a playbook, and then you can repeat that playbook, but being the pioneer, being the first to do is still valued. It just takes more time. So yeah, try to be first to market. Could be a winning strategy still.
Absolutely. Any final closing remarks, gentlemen?
No, thank you.
All right, lovely. That was a really interesting session. Thank you so much.